Ladies and gentlemen, the next lecture this afternoon will be delivered by Samuel L. Clemens, a gentleman whose high character and unimpeachable integrity are only equaled by his comeliness of person and grace of manner. And I am the man. I was obliged to excuse the chairman from introducing me because he never compliments anybody, and I knew I could do it just as well. To tell you the truth, being introduced has never really worked out that well for me. For instance, at one of my first lectures, which I gave in Northern California in 1866, shortly after returning from the Sandwich Islands, it was in a remote mining camp. I think it was Red Dog or Rough and Ready. A local miner was pressed into service to introduce me. He had to be pushed up onto the stage to do it. And then all he said was this: "I shall not waste any unnecessary time in the introduction. I don't know anything about this man. At least I know only two things. One is that he has never been in the penitentiary. And the other is, I can't imagine why not." So I thought I would spare everyone by introducing myself. As you all no doubt know, here in 1896, I have embarked upon a speaking tour of the world in order to pay off debts incurred by my business associates. Perhaps you would like to hear a few things about my life. I will start at the very beginning. I cannot vouch for the truthfulness of it, as I was too young at the time to examine into matters, but those who were there tell me that I was born on the last day of November 1835 in Florida, Missouri, that is. It was the merest little village, hardly that, just a tiny hamlet in the backwoods of Missouri where nothing ever happened. The village contained 100 people, and I increased the population by 1%, which is more than most of the best men in history could have done for a town. It may not be modest in me to refer to this, but it is true. There is no record of a person doing as much, not even Shakespeare. But I did it for Florida, and it shows I could have done it for any place, more than Bacon did for London or Franklin did for Boston. During that first part of my life, I was simply experimenting, doing, watching, and trying to process it all, trying to get my bearings, as it were, to locate, orient, and position myself in the universe, or at least in the world. Where was I? Who was I? Who were all these people around me? What did it all mean? Where did I fit in within my family and within the community in which I resided? Not to mention the country, the world, the universe. When I arrived there as a sort of earthbound satellite of Halley's Comet, Missouri was at the far edge of the American frontier. It was considered the West, the far West even. I was the first in my family to be born in Missouri. My parents having been born in Virginia and Kentucky, and my older siblings all having been born in Tennessee. The family had only been in Missouri a few months when I afforded that almost invisible little village its first glimpse of a Clemens baby. I do not remember much about my infancy other than the dubious expression on the faces of the neighbors when they examined me. When a neighbor lady came visiting soon after I was born, she looked at me in my crib and then turned to my mother and said, "You don't expect to raise that babe, do you?" My mother allowed she would try. A family doctor saved my life several times. Still, he was a good man and meant well. Not long before she died, I asked my mother, "I suppose that during all that time you were uneasy about me?" "Yes, the whole time," she admitted. "Afraid I wouldn't live?" After a reflective pause, ostensibly to think out the facts, she replied, "No, afraid you would."